Hi, my name is Luke Woltanski. I'm a singer-songwriter, performer, and multi-instrumentalist who plays over 230 shows a year across the state of Michigan and the Midwest. But there's a little bit more to me than just being a live musician. I mean, one would certainly hope, right? Which is why throughout the year of 2024, my friends and I are going to be trying something new every single week. And we're going to be bringing you along to experience the chaos, the hijinks, and of course, the danger that comes with it. So come on and join us as musicians try anything. What could possibly go wrong? I won't even try and put fluff on this. I hope you're okay with my voice because I've been getting done with the most wicked winter cold, like head flu cold. I don't even know what it is. I don't know, some alien disease that's come to terrorize our planet and destroy our livelihoods. I've been dealing with that. I've been dealing with this really nasty cold for a while, so my voice is kind of congested sounding, and I'm still very congested sounding, so you'll see me reaching for this quite often. So we'll see if we can get through this. Technically, this is the first episode of these, and with that, I decided I would try and introduce myself and give sort of a bio of myself on the fly, off the top of my head. I'm terrified. I am a 25-year-old singer-songwriter living up in the Traverse City area up in northern Michigan. I play over 230 shows a year all around Michigan, be it from Charlevoix to Chicago, Adrian up to... I'm trying to think of something that sounds like A, but there's a school bus now across the street and it's distracting me. From down in Michigan City all the way up to Mackinac City, pretty much anywhere that begins with the same letter. I get to work with some of the coolest people that I know, and I get to be friends with some of the most interesting people out there. You see, this whole entire story began on March 21st, 1998, when I was born to my parents, Steve and Tammy Woltanski, in Kalamazoo, Michigan. From there, the entire story of the planet Earth started to go steadily downhill. When I was born, my parents found that not only did I have extremely crippling allergies and asthma, so much so that I spent the first 2.5 years of my life in and out of the hospital almost every single week, but I would not fall asleep as a toddler to anything other than classic rock. Yes, I was a total freak. That eventually told my parents that, hey, maybe we should actually get this kid some sort of lessons. So from a very young age, my parents got me classical voice lessons with several different vocal teachers. From here on out, I was that classic and annoying choir and theater kid throughout elementary school, middle school, and high school. I was always singing in a choir at school, trying to get in with a play, trying to get in with a musical, or I was doing a community choir. Why does it taste like carrots? Or I was singing in a community choir somewhere around. During the time of my elementary school life, I lived in Plainwell for several years, moved up to Montague for 3 years, and then moved back to Plainwell for my middle school years. That was kind of a wild time, and young Luke was having trouble finding himself, especially in middle school, during that time when, a kid's body is changing. We're hormonal. Past me was hormonal. Now, during this time, I came across a movie. I promise this has something to do with the story. I came across a movie called Escanaba in the Moonlight. Now, see, my entire family are all big hunters. This is a classic movie written by Jeff Daniels, all about a deer hunting camp up in northern Michigan. Sounds like something I'd be into based on what my family was like. It quickly became my favorite movie of all time. To this day, it is still my favorite movie. And there's a specific line that happens very early on in the movie that doesn't get said at any other point in the movie. Very early on in the movie, the main character, Reuben Sodi, gets to his deer camp, walks in and says, "How you doing, Dad?" Pats his dad on the knee, and his dad says, without hesitation,
"If I felt any better, I'd be dangerous."
It was like a voice called out from heaven. There it was. That was going to be what little middle school me would make his entire life about. And you know what? That's what I made my entire life about. That single line got me out of every single awkward interaction I ever had in middle school, high school, college, and in adult life, if you could call what I am now an adult. I was telling everyone whenever they asked how I was doing, if I felt any better, I'd be dangerous. Now, I still haven't gotten official permission from Jeff Daniels to use that line for like my entire brand. So, Jeff, if you're watching this, please. I love you. When I was 10 years old, my parents bought me my first guitar from Guitar Center. It's actually this one right here is the first guitar I ever owned. It was $99 at the time, this little Yamaha, and it still makes sounds. It still sounds great. This thing was $99. Now, since then I've held on to it and loved it, and potentially loved it a bit too much. There's dents and blood all over this thing. But they bought me my first guitar when I was 10 years old, and it sat in the corner of my room for 6 months until my parents eventually decided we're either going to get rid of it or you're going to start playing it. From that moment on, I dedicated myself to learning as much as I could about the guitar. I even started writing my first songs during this time. That was when songs like Summertime Minstrel, Lawn Chair in the Sun all came about, was during this first year of having the guitar and knowing the guitar. And while self-teaching myself the guitar, I decided that I wanted to do even more with what I wanted to do. So I bought my first harmonica at an estate sale in downtown Glen Arbor when I was, I believe, 12 years old. I was either 12 or 13, one of those two. And found out that if I get a specific brace that I could put on my shoulders, I could play both the harmonica and the guitar. I don't have to worry about learning lead guitar. It was beautiful. So simple, so straightforward. I didn't have to pay anyone else to come and play with me, which wasn't a problem then, but would become a thing later on. But I still wanted to do more musically. So during my freshman year of high school, I started getting lessons from Jennifer Hugenheid, who is a piano teacher right in downtown Plainwell. Now, she was an amazing piano teacher. She showed me scales. She showed me how to arrange the entire... I need to eat. She was the first person to teach me how to arrange the entire spectrum of musical notes on a board in front of me. But there was only one problem. Whenever she would try and teach me a simple song to start to get me comfortable with hand positioning on the piano, I would run off with that and write 3 more songs and show them to her every single time. So eventually she said, "Luke, get out of my house." She didn't say it like that. She was much more graceful about it. She said that basically I needed a jazz piano teacher. She didn't have the right tools in her own musical arsenal to help me out. And that was okay. She was an amazing teacher, and she got the ball rolling, I think, a lot more than she even knows. Shortly after this, I was also having to deal with sort of a schism within my own soul. And I was finding that I was really enjoying my biology and chemistry classes. Throughout high school, I doubled down on trying to become the best chemistry, biology, anatomy kid I could be. I wanted to be a doctor. That was what I had finally decided I was going to do with my life, alongside doing community choirs, school theater, being a guitarist, being a piano player, all these things. The schism became a serious problem when, during the summers that I would come up to Glen Arbor to live up at my family's place, up at kind of in between Glen Arbor and Empire, I was coming up here every single summer for the entire summer. So many figures up here got me into music, like Patrick Nemisto, Chris Skellinger, Brian Poirier, Andre Vioch, John Kumjan, Elizabeth Landry. So many people up here got me into playing music out and about live. And I found out during the first show I played at an art opening in downtown Glen Arbor at Lake Street Studios, I found out that there was nothing I had in my life that could compare to the feeling I had of performing a song live for an audience. The only problem is, when you first start out in something, you suck. And I continued to suck every single summer, all the way up until I graduated high school. I was horrible. But I had so many people in my life who kept telling me to keep on going. Every single one of those kept pointing me in the direction of putting more energy and more effort into my music. During that time, I had amassed up my savings for college entirely by working at a coffee shop, Leonard Coffee Roasting up here, and by playing gigs in and around the Traverse City area. I was beginning to find out that the more I practiced, the more I played out, the more comfortable I felt with myself and the more comfortable I felt playing my music. So, wild enough, practice does make perfect. I decided to go to Hillsdale College to study molecular biology and genomic engineering. And while I was there, I thought, you know what, music works for the summer, but it's not like a year-round thing. I'm never going to be able to make a living in this. Will I? Will I? And while I was there, a lot of my biology professors happened to also be musicians on the weekends, or they were families of musicians. Dr. Silas Johnson, my virology 0G molecular biology professor, that was a cool class. His entire family were all musicians up in the Traverse City area. Dr. Frank Steiner, my bacteriology, microbiology, my molecular biology professor. He was a guitarist and a singer on the weekends, and he would play with his buddies in the band at a coffee shop every week. It seemed like everyone I knew at the college had some sort of tie to music, and I decided, why not do something in the music department? Now, contrary to popular belief, even among the music department, I was never even a minor in music. However, I found myself spending somewhere between 4 to 8 hours a day in the music building, on top of being a biology major and doing all my homework and all that. I got in with the jazz department and trying to take lessons as much as I could. Now, as a bio major, I had to pay full price for these lessons, but I started spending as much time as I could practicing the guitar, practicing the piano, practicing voice, and of course, still writing music the whole time through college. And I was still doing all my bio things. I actually was one of the few juniors who presented research. I did a population study on migratory birds in Luther, Michigan. Now, I'll admit, I was not the best biology student at this time. During my junior year, I was starting to realize that I wanted to do music more than anything else, but I still hadn't figured out that I could do it as a career. It just didn't make sense. How could someone just do nothing but play shows and write music and have enough to afford to live, to pay bills, pay rent, pay for insurance, pay for food, all that stuff? There's so many bills. My senior year was 2020, which was when the COVID-19 pandemic hit America and everyone had to shut down. During that time, I got quarantined at college in a house right next door to what was called the Boondocks. Now, the Boondocks was full of a ton of students who were all studying mathematics, statistics, history, but they were all amazing jazz musicians. Folks like Jake Rummel, Carson Waits, Dean Sinclair, you all definitely know their work from my records. During that time, we all got together and broke quarantine a little bit, but we were right next door and we were jamming together anyway, so doesn't matter. We would get together and jam as much as we could, but we were still doing our classes online. That's burp number 3 at this point. It was during this time that we all got together and wrote Before We Part, which was an amazing record all about our time together in college and all of our experiences. This record wouldn't come out until 2022 because it took us so long to mix it and make it sound just the way we liked it. When I graduated college that spring, we were one of the few colleges in the world that actually had an in-person graduation. There were tons of restrictions, but I still got to have an in-person graduation. And during that time, I was in the middle of playing Up North Michigan summer shows. Up North Michigan is great during the summer. It's warm. It's like the coast of California almost. Everyone's up to be on vacation. Beaches are full. Music is happening everywhere. I was making enough money to live. But when the fall came, things cooled down because everything had to be moved inside. Everyone was still social distancing. I was out of a job. So I decided cold turkey to move down to Georgia. Now, this is kind of a funny story, actually. This idea had been in my head ever since graduation when my friend, Patrick Murphy, who was more widely known by his stage name, Michael Fahey.
25 minutes 50. Where is the ground?
It's on the other side of the piano bench there. Posed the idea to me of moving down to Georgia together, moving to Atlanta, and putting ourselves into the jazz scene down there and seeing what we could do. We did all this work to find ourselves a house outside of Atlanta, try and get a lease and all that, and get 6 people on board to do it. We were supposed to head down there in the middle of October, and this all happened the week after Labor Day that year. One by one, each of the folks I was going to be going with dropped out, got audited, or just decided that they wanted to do other things until it was down to just Michael and I. We looked at each other, looked at the rent on the house. Michael looked at me and said, I don't think I can afford it. I'm sorry. And that was when I realized I was in trouble. In deciding to go down to Georgia, I had booked a whole bunch of shows at wineries that were going to be happening right when we moved down. So I only had 2 weeks to figure out what my living situation was going to be down in Georgia. But I found a house just outside of Athens, Georgia, not Athens, Greece, Athens, Georgia. Which is about an hour and a half from Atlanta and about an hour from each of the shows that I booked. I found a house just outside of Athens that had rent for $700 a month. $700 a month? That was amazing. That's it. How did I find, how? I called up the landlord. She spoke very little English, but just enough to get by. She spoke mostly Spanish, and this is something that I wasn't ready for when I moved down to Athens, Georgia. There is a massive Spanish-speaking population down there. So I was able to get a spot at the house and move down to Athens. I moved into this beautiful, beautiful house. I had a full kitchen. I had a living room. I had a mudroom. I had a private pond that was stocked with fish. I had not just one master bedroom, but 2 master bedrooms with a connecting bathroom in the middle. I moved into what I thought was going to be the perfect house. And then I discovered the mouse infestation, and then the cockroach infestation, and then the ant infestation. And that's when I remembered the rent. That was amazing. That's it. How did I find, how? It made sense now. This is why it was so inexpensive. The place hadn't really been taken care of. This poor woman didn't have time to take care of it. So I spent my first week down there going in and out of the Lowe's in town, getting a whole bunch of extermination supplies and exterminating each infestation one by one. The ants I could deal with for a little bit because they were just relegated mostly to the kitchen. So I just ate TV dinners for a while. During this time, I started playing in wineries and breweries around Georgia. And being that I was a newcomer and didn't know much about the area, I was doing my best with limited information. I would play my music, people would like it, I'd get recommended to places, and slowly but surely I was getting to the point where I could play 1 show a week. I was able to just barely get by. But eventually the time came for me to come back home. I was feeling homesick about Michigan, I was feeling homesick about Traverse City, about Northern Michigan, and I just wanted to start playing shows again at a higher frequency. So I moved back up here. During this time, I was living in my parents' summer house during the winter.
Welcome to the Himalayas!
I started to become known as Luke Woltanski, the dangerous music man, because whenever folks would come up to me and ask who I was, I'd say, if I felt any better, I'd be dangerous. I'm Luke Woltanski. That if I felt any better, I'd be dangerous thing kept going from middle school to high school to college, so much so to the point where everyone would always call me the danger guy whenever they'd see me, which is hilarious because if I was a spice, I'd be flour. But that followed me all throughout, so I can't complain. And this past November, I got really lucky when I found a house that I could afford, that I could turn into my beautiful, beautiful studio. And now I live up here full time and I get to play music with you all full time. So it's been a long and winding road to get here. It's been really, really fun, and I'm excited to continue it. Hey, did you like the video you just saw? If you did, then please make sure to like and subscribe for more content just like that, because if you do, I promise, I'll blow you a kiss. This could get dicey, couldn't it? What if we get attached to each other, you know? Like, what if it becomes something more? I'm afraid of commitment, you know?